Hello there, and welcome to another episode of Behind the Composition. Today is not so much about what I've found, but more about persistence. And let me show you why. I know I said this isn't really about finding a composition, but let me tell you the backstory anyway. That I've been hiking up this hill here. The first time I did it was perhaps, 4 years ago. And I was taken by this view here. And since then I've hiked back up here for many years, many times. And on each occasion that I've hiked up here, the conditions have been different. But most of the time I haven't been what I would call grandiose or exceptional. Most of the time it's been cloudy, and I've been working with the conditions that I've gotten. So the composition that I've framed up from up here has changed for every time that I've been up here. So I'm going to cycle through a few of the compositions that I've framed up, and now let's talk about this composition that I framed up today. Let's start with the conditions that I had to work with. I could see on the weather forecast that this cloud was going to lay in a good position for some nice, really nice color to appear in it. And I arrived before sunset, obviously, and I came up this little path up here, dumped down my camera bag and set up the tripod just right over there and took out the camera and started to play around. And what I immediately started to notice was you can see the shape of the cloud. It hasn't changed that much. It's kind of pointing towards that direction, or it's sloping that way, and we have a nice hill right there. So I thought I could use something pointed towards that direction, so I decided to move down here where you can see that I'm standing now, just to kind of see how the cloud was working there towards there. I hope you get the point. And the thing that I found was how the light was playing on this rock shelf right here. On previous compositions I've worked more with the slope down here, but on this occasion I was kind of smitten by how the light was working there and creating a contrast between the light and the dark there, and thus creating a line just following towards here as well. So that is what I decided to do. I quickly framed it up, and let me show you on the back of the camera. Here you can see the composition that I ended up with. You can see how the shelf is kind of pointing towards the right there, along with the clouds we have up here. The light has obviously moved on the point where I wanted it. So if we just cycle through the images I took here, and I captured the whole sunrise, you can see how the clouds and everything is just leading you through towards that little hill that I was talking about there. Not that it's a super interesting hill, but it's a point of interest beyond the foreground itself. But obviously in this case the main thing is the light reflecting there or hitting there, as well as the majestic clouds that we got, and everything just kind of integrates into a scene. So I would say this is a secondary consideration, just making it a little bit more integrated and more well held together in a sense. Also, the main tool of composition that I used in this particular frame is height. I wanted a kind of clean cut. If I'm if I raise the camera up like this, you can see it becomes more of a flow down towards the trees and everything, but I wanted more clean cut, so getting the camera more further down here, you can see creates a cleaner edge right there and more of a contrast between the forest, the clouds, and this piece of rock here, which is kind of the main idea. So this composition here is one of those things you could say that light is more important than the composition, but the way that I see it is more that the light is a secondary tool of composition. If I hadn't composed it in the way that I did, the light wouldn't have worked in my favor, thus the light wouldn't have been as important. And the same goes for manipulating light in post-production. By dodging and burning, you can bring certain points in the image more into interest and decrease the interest in certain things. Thus, light really is part of the composition. It's a tool that you can use, you can manipulate it after you've taken the image. And if you think about it, in landscape photography, we're almost always using natural light, but photographers such as portrait photographers and product photographers and everyone, a lot of other people or a lot of other photographers are using man-made light sources. So they're shaping the light and really manipulating the light to work in favor of their and really build a composition with that. So light is part of the composition to the point where we can manipulate it. So that is something to consider. And if a certain point is kind of distracting, darkening it down and giving it less emphasis is using light as a compositional tool. So that's something to think about. For instance, I can show an example of it here. You can see this is basically the frame. It creates the line towards where we want it. But if I had moved more straight on, then sure, we would have had a nice piece of light there, but it wouldn't have been the same. It would have been a clean cut, not really leading or pointing you through the frame in any way. So using the light as a compositional tool and making it so that it flows through the image instead of just cutting it off makes it into a better composition. So therefore, saying that light is more important than composition is just weird. Light and composition are both essential, but composition is the way that you use the light as well. So in that sense, composition is actually more important. So yeah, this has been a bit of a ramble, but if you've enjoyed it, make sure to give it a thumbs up, a like, and make sure to share it with everyone. The more shares, the better for everyone. More goes around. Leave a comment if you have any questions, and also check out my adventure with videos, which are so well produced, so good. You should really watch them if you haven't. And yeah, that's it. Until next time, goodbye.